See the size of this field. As I mentioned, Bletting making his debut. Dolmabahce Palace there. That is simply by building a palace, it cost, well, in today's terms, billions. There's a more sedate pace, a more sensible pace perhaps for some on the bridge and heading off the bridge.
Tüm patencilerimize başarılar diliyoruz. Sevgili maraton severler, ne kolay 43. İstanbul Maratonu'nda parkura çıkacak erkek atletler arasında kariyerinde dünya üçüncülüğü ve olimpiyat sekizinciliği bulunan Ugandalı Solomon Mutai de bulunuyor. En iyi derecesi 2 saat 5 dakika 25 saniye. We wish success to all our athletes.
We certainly do. The race gets underway there with the elite. Significant lumps and bumps, mostly downhill in the first 5K, and then it's very, very flat. But there is a sting in the tail of this 63.30. Well, that would bring them home in around 2:07.30, 2:08. To be fair to the athletes, to the ladies, Mamadou Daska, very experienced Ethiopian, 38 years old, the leading women. Look out too for Janeth. The race gets underway there with the elite. Significant lumps and bumps, mostly downhill in the first 5K, and then it's very, very flat. But there is a sting in the tail of this 63.30. Well, that would bring them home in around 2:07.30, 2:08. To be fair to the athletes, to the ladies, Mamadou Daska, very experienced Ethiopian, 38 years old, the leading women. Look out too for Have to contend with the hordes of astonishingly talented runners from Kenya and Ethiopia. A little bit of fancy dress going on there. Somewhat ghoulish. Well, Halloween was just a few days ago. So a belated Halloween celebration there from one of the runners. How long can those pacemakers, Kemboy and Biwott, stay there? The longer they can stay there, the longer they will be of assistance to that elite men's field. The women 32.48 at 10K, by the way. And that puts them on schedule for 2:18.30. They're really shifting, relatively speaking, going much quicker than the men, who are on schedule for around 2:11. The men, incidentally, have now gone through 12K. 11K came up for them in 34.17. That was a 3:06 kilometre. And they've gone through 12K now in 37.27. And that last kilometre, 3:09. So those last 4 kilometres for the men, little bit of variation, but pretty steady. 3:11, 3:08, 3:06, 3:09. And there have been a few little rises and drops, so it's understandable. Here the women's pack. We had a shot there of Jacqueline Chepengano making her 4th marathon. 10 women in that lead women's pack. It has whittled down a little bit compared with the men's pack, which is 24 strong. Very tightly bunched though, isn't it? Goodness me. I don't think they're running into any wind. If there is some wind, it's on their backs, because we saw as they crossed the main bridge right at the start that there was quite a strong wind coming from the north, so they ought to be sort of banking this advantageous wind that's helping them at the moment. 40 minutes on the clock, and I just get the impression that they're all letting the pacemakers dictate the tempo, and maybe one or two of them holding back a little bit more than they would like to, because this is good running now. Dead flat, good road surface, following the blue line which went down a few days ago, but not unleashing any aggression as yet. It is early days, I suppose, to be fair. They're the experienced marathon runners, they know best. 41 minutes on the clock, and plenty of runners on that main bridge still. And the 15th May Sehitla Bridge. I say 15th May, it's 15th of July, excuse me, 15th of July. Martyrs Bridge is what they crossed at the start. Of course, what this means, this big pack through 41 minutes now, and what about 20 minutes, 24 minutes from halfway? If they get to halfway and this pack is still a good size, it means we will see real fireworks in the second half. Great racing as they click away these early kilometres. Well, there's the 10k splits confirmed for the men, 31.15. 31.12 is what came up on my computer, but we're given that 31.15 blocking. So on schedule for about 2:11:30. 13k, by the way, has just clicked by, and that's 13th kilometre of 3:04. So it is a nice steady tempo now. 40:30 their time at 13 kilometres. That's a projected finishing time of 2:11:29. Good numbers moving along. Hard to tell if those are 15 kilometre or marathon runners. I think marathon runners. So the ladies sticking close together, sticking to the pacemakers. Struggles up the slope to get up to the finish straight. The finish straight is about 200 metres long, dead straight to the finish line. So getting their personal drinks, then they know which table their drinks are on. These runners, they head for a certain table. It looks pretty well organised. I like to see that, just 2 or 3 bottles on each table. That's really well done. That's really well done. I've seen major marathons in years gone by where there are too many bottles on each table, and it's very hard for the runners to pick up their own bottle when they're moving at speed. There's part of the old city wall right up alongside the water. Of course, Istanbul, probably more than any other global city, has been battled over by various sides through the centuries, going back hundreds and hundreds of years. This has been the site of one conflict after another between the forces of Asia and the forces of Europe. And a peace of sorts has been reached, thank goodness, with not just Turkey but the city spanning the Bosphorus. There's a lovely shot, one of the grand avenues of Istanbul. 15 in that group. I'm getting about 12 of them are ladies, as they will be approaching 15k pretty soon. And they're enjoying the job being done here by the pacemakers, Vestas Chemdor and Javid Chemweno. They're tucked in really tightly behind them. In the orange there, to the left of the picture, you can see Emily Tibet, Kip Chumba, Sophia in the middle of the picture. Sophia Chemzu tucked in really close behind the pacemakers, rumbling along this road where she set her personal best back in November 2019. It was then a personal best. In fact, it still is 2:27.51. The two athletes here wearing numbers which I'm not familiar with in the women's field, and we'll try and identify those for you as the race unfolds. Pacemakers thinking on their feet, that's good to see. Checking their watches, making sure they stay on schedule. Well, Istanbul apparently has hot summers, but not stinking hot summers. We're a few hundred kilometres north of Athens, where I know this summer they had a sweltering period. It got to 46 degrees centigrade in Athens this summer, but I'm told it never gets so hot here in Istanbul. I think the effect of the ocean keeps temperatures down, although the humidity here can rise quite high. So the women at 15k then, well, that's a nice big pack, isn't it? What, 10 athletes really within just a few seconds of Sophia Chemzu on 49.56. 49.56, just looking at her 15k, well they've just slipped outside 2:20 schedule. They're on schedule now for about 2:20.30, so that's probably a little bit more realistic from the ladies. They really did hammer the first 10k, as I said, 32.48 from them at 10k. Chemzu, Jeritic, Rotic, Chepengano, it's all Kenya and Ethiopia in that women's race. You could almost have had a team race, couldn't you? 4 to score. In that fluorescent green. Their move at the right time. Do you bide your time, sit in there, just follow any other moves, not show your cards in effect, and then use that last hill to kick perhaps to victory? Or do you push now and go early with some, what, about 10k to go? 32k hasn't yet been reached by this pack, but they're still on 2:10 tempo, this men's pack. If they want to get inside 2:10 and threaten the course record, or indeed the all-comers record here in Turkey, they really have got to, somebody's got to take the bull by the horns now with 10k to go and attack this course, attack the field. Remember, the Turkish all-comers record was 2:09.35. That was set in Izmir just some 6 months ago, back in early April, by Tsegay Getaju of Ethiopia. The Turkish all-comers, that is, 2:09.35. The course record, 2:09.44. Only some 9 seconds slower by Daniel Kibet back in 2019. Kibet is running here. He is still in there. But he's eased back on the throttle as Vincent Rono in the green strip. He's thought better of it. It is still Vincent Rono back in about, he's back in about 7th or 8th place now. He's settled back into the pack. He's just biding his time. In fact, it's Brian Kipsang, I think, who is to the fore. The 27-year-old Kenyan with the best of 2:09 in that men's race. The women there going through 30 kilometres, 1:40.56 according to my clock. are down to what, 5 ladies now, 3 men accompanying them. Still Judith sitting in there. Judith Cherono at A491. Pascalia Chetkogai at the back of the group. Jacqueline Chepengano is there as well, just faltering to get her drink. That didn't go very smoothly. But as they reach that 30k drink station, so this women's pack is showing a little gaps for the first time. Well, that has broken up. And in the men's field too, wow, there's been an attack. Look at the bottom left of picture. The fluorescent green vest of Vincent Rono has suddenly lost 50 or 60 metres. He's hit a wall. He's gone through a really bad patch. And we're down to, what, about 10 athletes now in this lead group, with others dropping away, including last year's champion. Bernard Sang in the red and white vest is back in about 11th place. He can't go with this surge. 1 hour 42 minutes on the clock. They've still got about 28 minutes of running to go, by my estimation. They've been on 2:10 tempo for a long time now, but we are down to 10. And I think it's still Brian Kipsang to the right of picture who's doing the aggressive running. Look out too for just looking for Daniel there, who is in the Yittiyal is there. Yittiyal looking strong. It's Yittiyal Zerihun in the blue, right in the middle of the picture. The Ethiopian 28-year-old is the best of 2:06. That was in Dubai last year when he was 5th. I was at that race. It was the most astonishing fast time packing by the East Africans on that day in Dubai. But that field has been torn asunder. It was 20 strong only 5 or 10 minutes ago, and literally in the last 5 minutes or so it has gone from 15 to 12 to 10, and there is still aggressive running going on at the front end. Well, who is going to come out on top? Victor Kiplangat now making his debut, the Ugandan 21-year-old, looking very up for this one in the red shorts. Veering over to his side of the road. He was a pacer at the Mission Marathon in Enschede in the Netherlands back in April this year. He stopped at about 35k, having got to the halfway in 64.47. He hasn't had any other races this year. He's done track races, but nothing good. He hasn't broken 14 minutes for 5,000. He's on 28.16 for 10,000, nowhere near world class. But he was 16th at the World Half Marathon Championships last year in Gdynia in 60.29, so he does have great credentials. In fact, his best half marathon is 59.26. That was when he was 7th in Delhi in November last year. I was at that race as well. It was a warm day, and yet he and the leading athletes, a whole load of them, crashed through the 60-minute barrier. So watch Victor Kiplangat in the white vest. He is definitely a name to watch, and at the front at the moment. But I still sense that none of them are really confident enough to make that decisive move, to open up a gap on the rest and really start asking questions. They head across the road here with the 33-kilometre marker behind them. They've gone through 33k now. 32k was 1:39.21. That 32nd kilometre was a 3:17. And then the 33rd kilometre was a 3:06. So we go back to this women's race. The men, by the way, at 33k, 1:42.28. And the women now with Sheila Jeritic. Ayantu Abdi is there. And Ayantu Abdi, I mean, I was researching her name last night and I could hardly find anything about her. The Ethiopian is 29 years old. She has a best of 2:30. That was in Rennes 2017. She hasn't broken 70 minutes for a half marathon, although she did win in Warsaw 2017 in 70.26. And yet she's on schedule here for something like 2:21, 2:22. She's heading for possibly a personal best by several minutes. They have to negotiate that very hard last 14 or 1500 metres up to the finish square, of course. So that will take away a minute or two of time, I'm sure, from what these projected finishing times. But nonetheless, this women's pack are moving at a very, very healthy tempo, and they have taken it on today. I admire them because they've really attacked the race. This men's pack, stride for stride, the two athletes, first and second. Victor Kiplan getting the white vest tucked in third place. Bull. And in the women's pack, still those pacemakers doing a great job. Vestus Chemwacho and David Chemweno. And Ayantu Abdi looking the most keen for it at the moment. Looking to it, Sheila Jeritic to the left in the tall athlete in the light blue vest, and just trying to see Jacqueline Chepengano, I think that is, as well, in the light blue. And they're not giving anything away, are they? None of them are taking on the pace from the pacemakers. They're sitting in there. Ayantu Abdi, well, she's not exactly a mystery. Her last race was fourth in Taiwan, but that was in September 2019 when she ran 2:30.57. She's going to run a lot quicker than that today. Her personal best is 2:30.38 from Rennes in northern France back in 2017. So 4 years it's taken her to find an opportunity to produce a much quicker time. And she has grabbed the opportunity in spectacular fashion so far today, with about half an hour of running to come in that women's race. For the men, well, a very different affair. They've got less than 20 minutes to run. And it is last year's champion Bernard Sang who just gets his nose in front. Mengistu is there as well. Watch out for him. Mengistu Nigatu, that is, of Ethiopia, the 36-year-old. He's a 2:19 performer, if my research is to be believed, running his 5th marathon, and yet he's in this pack now, and still at about 2:11 tempo. So 5.5 kilometers to run in this men's race. 35k is behind them, so now is 36k. They've gone through 36k in 1:51.29. That was a 3-minute split. Indeed, their last 2-kilometer splits have been 3 minutes, have been 2:54 and 3 minutes. They are certainly racking up the tempo at the front of the men's race. In the women's race, well, these pacemakers have done a fabulous job. And as I say that, so Sheila Jeritic, just beginning to lose contact. Losing contact. Oh dear, with 1:54 on the clock. She may be seeing victory eased out of her hands here. And now an attack from Mengistu Nigatu in the orange. And he thinks better of it. He just tests them on that climb. He surges. That was extravagant. He surges and then looks over his shoulder and he's back. And I think we've seen 3 or 4 attacks now, which have lasted about 100 meters each time, about 20 seconds. And then the athlete making the attack has thought, no, no, no, not yet, not yet. There is so much indecision going on here. And now another aggressive surge. This is Robert Kipkemboi of Kenya, the 33-year-old. He's a 2:07 performer. This looks a little bit more concerted now. Robert Kipkemboi in his 15th marathon. He ran 2:07.09 in Seoul 2 years ago. In fact, 2.5 years ago when he was 5th. But Robert Kipkemboi, who earlier on this year, back in April, was 4th in Lagos in Nigeria in 2:16.04. I went to the Lagos Marathon a couple of years ago. Very warm, humid conditions. So 2:16 there is still a pretty solid run. But he's broken 2:10 3 times as Robert Kipkemboi. He has the credentials to go well here. Although in 2019 he ran 4 marathons, can you believe, Kip Kemboy? Maybe he's freshened up after that little campaign. So she's still hanging in there stubbornly, isn't she, Sheila Jeritic? They haven't eased away from her yet. She's working very hard to cling on to this. We're down to 3 women. She may make the rostrum yet. But Ayantu Abdi looks the calmest to me. The Ethiopian in the dark strip there with the yellow on her shorts, tucked in behind these 2 pacemakers who've done a fabulous job every step of the way. We're coming to the sharp end of this 43rd Enkolai Istanbul Marathon now. 1 hour, 56 minutes on the clock, and the men's race has seen one attack after another in the last half hour, and now it's beginning to split up. A pack of 12 that looked so comfortable 5 minutes ago is down to 5 or 6, and even that is beginning to show gaps as they reach another drink station. They've gone through 37k with a 307-kilometre split, and that was in 1:54.36. The projected time in the men's race 2:10.42, so they're going to be down there around 2:10 to 11 territory. I say to 11 not because I'm pessimistic, but because they've got that big hill to negotiate near the end of the race. In the final mile there's a massive hill. All the marathon runners must complete to get up here to the flat finish. It's about a 200-metre dead straight run in to the finish line. There's the finish of the 15k. It's beginning to get busy, isn't it? Boy, oh boy. Huge crowds at the finish of the 15k. That is adjacent to the Sea of Marmara. And at about about 37k for the marathon runners as they're going in the opposite direction. But an attack, another attack in the men's race. With 4 kilometres to go for the men, they are very much at the business end here in Istanbul. And it is yet again Victor Kiplangat, who made a young Ugandan, he's only 21, made an attack about 20 minutes ago for about 200 metres and then eased back on the throttle. It was almost like he was testing the opposition, but plenty of people responded, so he eased back and kept his powder dry, making his debut here, the 21-year-old. But he has got really strong credentials in the half marathon. 59.26 he ran in Delhi a year ago. In fact, at the end of November last year, I was there in the Indian capital, so it was about 11 months ago, and carrying that form and that confidence through to the marathon, well, you are going to make a strong debut, and a win here today would be fabulous. It doesn't matter that it might not be under 2:10, the win is what matters. And also going well, and Robert Kemboy in the all black. So inside the last 4k now, 3.6 kilometres to come in this men's race, almost 2 hours on the clock, and we're down to 5. And I just get the feeling that none of them has really cut loose yet. They're looking strong. Victor Kiplangat has attacked a couple of times he's surged, but each time he surges, so they match him stride for stride. And this 39th kilometre will be quick, there's no doubt about it. 1:57.29 was the split at 38k. That was a 2:53. Very quick indeed. And this one I think is going to be similar. This 39th kilometre from the men, because they really are shifting. They're tanking along. The winner of the wheelchair race, they started at 8:45. It's 11 o'clock local time. So that's taken about 2 hours, 15 minutes for Valis Alani to win the women's wheelchair race. Well done to her. She is certainly suffering after negotiating that massive climb up to the finish area. Still 5 in this men's pack. They've got through 39k now in 2 hours and 31 seconds. That kilometre of 3:01, so their last 2k splits have been 2:53 and 3:01, and they're on schedule now for something down around 2:10:20, so it is getting quicker. But which of these men has judged it best? Which of them has saved enough for that big climb? And it will be spectacular, which they're going to hit in about a mile's time, in about 1.5 kilometres time. They will lead into the hill and try to beat their opponents to the top. Who's going to be the king of the mountain today? So the Bosphorus to their right, there is now the Sea of Marmara in the background. Still these 5 men pushing on. In the all black in second place. The leader is Victor Kiplangat in the white and red. They are beginning to open up the gap. The cadence, the leg turnover is increasing. Every few hundred metres they're picking it up. It's almost becoming like a middle distance race. And in fact it is Robert Kiplangat now who forces himself to the front. And beginning to struggle in the background is Daniel Kibet, the 2019 champion.
Tüm patencilerimize başarılar diliyoruz. Sevgili maraton severler, ne kolay 43. İstanbul Maratonu'nda parkura çıkacak erkek atletler arasında kariyerinde dünya üçüncülüğü ve olimpiyat 8.liği bulunan Ugandalı Solomon Mutai de bulunuyor. En iyi derecesi 2 saat 5 dakika 25 saniye. We wish success to all our athletes.
We certainly do. The race gets underway there with the elite. Significant lumps and bumps, mostly downhill in the first 5k, and then it's very, very flat. But there is a sting in the tail of this 63.30. Well, that would bring them home in around 2:07.30, 2:08. To be fair to the athletes, to the ladies, Mamadou Daska, very experienced Ethiopian, 38 years old, the leading women. Look out too for Janeth Jetfield in that one. Will enjoy their journey of around 9 miles, just over 9 miles, I think, 15k. And many of them looking to me like they're pumping out a pace in the first few hundred metres that is a lot quicker than they'll be able to maintain. Can't resist it. But you can see the size of this field. As I mentioned, Bletting making his debut. Dolmabahce Palace there. That is simply by building a palace. It cost, well, in today's terms, billions. There's a more sedate pace, a more sensible pace perhaps for some on the bridge and heading off the bridge.
We wish success to all our athletes. Tüm sporcularımıza başarılar diliyoruz. Ne kolay 43. İstanbul Maratonu'nda 42 kilometre start aldı. İşte dev ekranda elit atletlerimizin toplu bir şekilde koştuklarının görüntüsü geliyor. Çok güzel görüntüler. Köprü üzerinde muhteşem İstanbul Boğazı'nda aynı şekilde değerli yöneticilerimiz de sizlere sevgilerini, selamlarını gönderiyorlar.